back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hi guys! So I'm here today to do a book review, and the book that I'm going to be reviewing is Arena by Holly Jennings. Now, I was very kindly sent this by Ace Books. I actually requested this from them because Chelsea told me about this over at the Reading Outlaw. I'll put a link to her channel below, and she said that it might maybe be something I was interested in because I tend to find that I enjoy sci-fi that is YA, particularly rather than hard science fiction adult. And I also have a real tendency to love books about gaming. I've never really been a huge gamer, computer or console, but I do have a boyfriend who's very into games, and I have a couple of friends who are very into it, and I just find it so fascinating as a culture. So I really enjoy reading books about it. Obviously there's Ready Player One that is fantastic. I also recently read Otherland, which has sort of echoes of that. And this one was kind of different from both of those because this one particularly focused on female gamers, which was fantastic. I loved that focus. And it also focused on a really interesting approach where it has a lot of different cultural things being brought into the story, and it has a lesbian couple in the story. We also have different people from different races. So there's a lot of stuff that I think should be in every book, which is in this book, and it works. What I really liked about this is it is a YA story, and it does have a romance in the storyline, so it is stereotypical YA, but it's done well, and I didn't really dislike this romance particularly. Initially I was a little bit worried that it might turn into the Hunger Games when the romance was introduced, because I liked the Hunger Games until the romance was introduced, but it didn't. I think that this was a story where I was quite excited by the main character at first. The main character is called Callie, and she is quite an interesting character because when we first meet her, she is in this game called the Rage Tournaments, and the Rage Tournaments are basically an online virtual reality where people battle to the death in teams. And it's quite a horrible idea, but loads of people love watching it, and it's a really big part of the culture within this world, so it's a big mainstream element. I really liked the discussions of drug abuse and also drug recovery in this. I think drug abuse is something that we do see in YA every now and then, and we also see in adult books every now and then, but the actual side of recovery was not something that I think that we see enough of, and I really enjoyed seeing it in this book. I think it was something that was done really nicely, and I think that the author handled it incredibly well to take these characters to the edge of something really horrible and tragic happening, and also be able to bring them back again and bring them back to themselves and show that it's possible to recover from things like drug abuse. It's possible to change your life around, and I really like that message that she was also projecting out to the audience of this book. The other thing that I think is really interesting is that within this, the Rage Tournaments are a massive industry, and it's really quite a nasty industry because the people who control these teams, they are their sponsors, and they can basically make and manipulate these people on the teams to do whatever they want to do. They're paying them, they're the ones who are in control, or at least that's how it has always been, up until Callie and her team decide that they need to change things around. The focus for them really needs to be on the players themselves and the players who have sacrificed themselves to this game, both in the past, people that they knew and people that they didn't know. And it turns out that lots of people in this world have actually had to sacrifice things quite dear to them to be part of this team, and some of them have even sacrificed their lives. So it's quite a sad story at times. I do think that this could have been a longer story. I think it could have been more emotionally developed, because there are some moments where I think if it had just had that little bit more detail, I would have really connected. However, as a whole, I think the story is very strong, and there are lots of very positive messages being put out by the author within this book, particularly for female gamers, particularly for drug recuperation, and particularly for going up against an industry that is trying to tell you what to do and fighting your corner and fighting your own battles. So all of those things were absolutely wonderful. The other thing that I did like a lot is that we have a main character who is half American and half Chinese, and she has a real interest in her culture as the story progresses. Most of the time she has kind of put her Chinese culture to the side and dismissed it and always called herself an American since joining the Rage Tournaments, but actually she meets a guy, as they always do, And this guy sort of proves to her, or introduces her to the idea of reintroducing herself and reimagining herself with her Chinese heritage also included in her personality, her game strategy, and her general life. So I really liked that although we had the love interest come into this, the love interest didn't take over, and the love interest actually helped her to discover things about herself, rather than just making her discover things about how much she was in love with him. So I was quite happy that it was still very focused on Callie at the end of this book, not the Callie and her love interest romance. And I do think that this could easily have been a second book. I don't know if there is going to be a second book. I think at the moment it's only a standalone and it's left on a fairly open ending, so there might be a second book. I would like to see one because I think it would be interesting to see what happened next, because the way that this is left, I think there is a lot more to come. It's kind of just the beginning at the end of this. The things I did have a few issues with were the love romance, as always, and also particularly the last battle within this, that is part of the Rage tournament, is incredibly short and very easy. I didn't feel like there was a real challenge there, so I would have liked to see a bit more of a challenge, and I would have liked to see the final battle be pulled out a lot longer than it was. Besides that, I don't have an awful lot of complaints. It was a well-written book, a very, very fast read, and both Chelsea and I really enjoyed discussing this whilst we were reading it, so I would certainly recommend checking this out if female gamers, drug recuperation, LGBTQ+, fighting against the industry sound like your sort of things, because all of that is included. I ended up giving this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's definitely very likeable, has a lot of good elements. The only complaints that I had were that I wish it had been a bit more in depth and a bit longer, and it would have really, really stood out to me if that had been the case. But as it stands, I still really liked it. So let me know your thoughts down below, whether you have read it or whether you're interested in picking it up, and I will chat to you all very soon in another video. Bye!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.